look at the rods and reels we use for our bait fishing for snapper, and there are two distinct types, two basic types basically. There's what we call a thread line or fixed spool or coffee grinder reel, like this. The reel sits under the rod, and the rod has very large eyes which are designed for casting, so as the line comes off the front of the reel it could go through the eyes easily. These are better suited for casting. I mean, it's like a surf casting reel, really, and we use them for casting floating baits, which we'll look at later in the program. But for bottom fishing, when you're sitting out on the channels and maybe 20 metres of water, I prefer not to use these actually. But the features they have, the drag system is on the front for tightening the drag, and this one I have set up for left-hand wind, and it's very easy to change it. You just undo the screw on the other side, take this out, turn it around the other side if you want to change the handle to one side or the other. I like a left-hand wind because I'm right-handed. I hold the rod in my right hand, with a strong hand I can wind with the left hand. This particular one has what's called a bait runner or bait feeder mode, this little lever at the back, and when it's in that mode the fish can run with the bait, take line out very easily, and then when you want to start, when you want to hook them, you just whack the lever forward or turn the handle. Same thing happens, and you're in gear, the pressure's on, and you can play your fish. So not really my favourite outfit for bottom dunking, for dropping baits down onto the bottom, which is 90% of our fishing. You can use it. In fact, I've even got my little soft bait outfit here, which is a very light braid line with a little coffee grinder reel, fixed pull reel, and we use that for casting soft baits. Soft baits will be the subject of a totally different DVD, but I'm just putting it out there while we're doing this in case the fish comes along, you know. Always got to be fishing, Jeffrey. And it's good for casting out a bait, and I like using the light soft bait outfit with the braid line just for bait fishing, you know, sometimes in fairly shallow water, and because it's great fun playing a fish on light line. The other type, of course, is the most common reel. We call it an overhead or free spool reel. The reel sits on top of the rod. The rods have got much smaller guides running all the way. They have more guides too, running down the rod, and you fish on top of the rod. This one has a lever drag to whip it into free spool, and you can adjust the drag as to how tight you want it. This knob in the middle adjusts the tension, so when you bring it up to strike, that adjusts how much tension you have on it, and whenever you adjust that, you bring that back to zero, adjust it, put it back up, and then test it to see if it feels right. Okay, so never adjust it with the drag up, always bring it back. And once you get that fixed, you shouldn't have to touch it again as long as you're fishing. They also have a little button here which you can depress, and that allows you to bring the lever even further forward and put on maximum drag if you've got a big fish. You have to be pretty careful doing that depending on the strength of your line. Most of the time you fish it like this, drop the line down, whack it up to the lever, and you're in business fishing. And the other style of overhead reel is a different drag system. That has a lever drag. This has what's called a star drag, and that's this knob here, and that's how you adjust the drag on this one. You just get it tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's dead easy. This would be the most common form of drag system. You don't need a fancy gold reel like this lovely Torque I've got. Any reel like this will work for your snapper fishing. And they have a free spool lever where you put it in the free spool, drop your line down, drop your bait down. Once it's on the bottom, into gear, and you're right. And once that's set, you shouldn't have to adjust the drag when you're fishing. The only time we adjust the drag is when we have a big fish and we get it by the boat. We always back off the drag, always back it off, keep the thumb on the spool, because if the big fish gets away from you when you're trying to net it or gaff it by the boat, you want to be able to take line easily. If you have the drag too tight, it's very unforgiving because there's no stretch in the line, you're in trouble, and more big fish are lost at the boat than anywhere else. So always back the drag off when by the boat. But for most, 99% of your snapper fishing, you just keep the drag set, and at about a third, you can measure it, but with the scales. But I just test it by pulling it off, and you want it so it's just a bit difficult to pull off, and you'll get used to that. So those are the three different sort of types of outfits that we use for our snapper fishing.